I just realized it's Friday. Another week. If we say that this saga is defined by the passage of time, as with all things, then, in the youth of our celestial courtship, the days were long, languid, lazy. They seemed to stretch into eternity as with a dream. But now they are rapid, because our tactics are leading us to the grave. And I think on this a lot. The futility of life. These are the things I was supposed to see in the moment. That this is the moment. This is my moment. I know that that's all he wanted me to see. I do know that. I also know that he'll never forgive me. How could he? How could he? The industry, I don't know. It's my dogs. Hush! But I grow weary, you know. I couldn't see the moment on the devil's terms. And I hate myself for it. Seeing how so many lives have been destroyed. I thought that it was me and Quentin, and everyone was on the same page. But now I see that they do take it as seriously as I do, and that only Quentin is flippant about it. And, right, we're all just so desperate for a change. I don't know. I guess it just really is that simple, that he knew I would kill myself eventually. That he knows I'll kill myself eventually. And that's like his Faustian pact, like as a practitioner of black magic, that eventually, right, evil will triumph, right? When he gives me cancer, you know, when he compels me to suicide, when I see how broken those women are, you know, everyone's applauding over their rapes, calling them brave. Right? Very funny. Very funny. But if that never occurs, right, this is my point, right, that if he doesn't mean that much to me, right, that only love means that much to me, then can't we just be in love, you know? Can't that be enough, you know? Beyond money, beyond, you know, like truth. You know, when I read Apology, you know, which is typically every year, I always am floored by how disgusting it all is. Like how, just like what's occurring now, you know. I don't mean to say that I'm like Socrates. I don't mean to say that, you know. I know that I come off as really pretentious, and that's like his argument. Like, oh, people think I'm bad. And so maybe that's the joke, that's why, like, I was supposed to, like, let him put the slime in my mind, you know, because, like, I am worse on a lot of levels, you know, as far as, like, being able to say more and all these things. But can he just wallow in this for the last 15 years of his life, you know? Can he hold it that long, you know? Like, I don't know. Control. I know this is why I came into his life, and I know that that's what's occurring now. You know? I was a horse's ass. That's all it is. That's the whole story. There's nothing else there, you know? That's, right? I don't deserve to be Quentin Tarantino's movie star. It's that easy, you know? But if if the other people in the formula can't, you know, if they can't maintain the way that it is anymore without anything good in their lives, you know, then we all have no choice but to recognize that, you know, it was easy for me to be dismissive, I suppose, is like maybe what I'm thinking about, because I had nothing to lose. And maybe he didn't respect that enough, you know, like in that way. I'm feeling a lot of guilt maybe right now. In that way. Friday. The days, they're just like the Doppler effect, you know? A slipstream of misery, you know? That's... I see it now. I do see it now. I see it now. That I've turned all of them into me. That's like what's actually occurred. And if, right, the thing that they all rest within and under can't stand me, you know, then, right, I offer you the gift of celibacy. I offer you the gift of intellectual introspection in the psychic mind game. Because I'm always alone. And so, you know, it's done now. It's done. Even if I ate a bullet right now, right? The Manson family's dead, right? Quentin Tarantino's cinematic family is gone. They're done. It's not cool anymore. It's just a mess of individuals, not bound by anything, because it was all rooted in this thing, you know? And in that way, again, it was easy for me to be cruel. And I have nothing but regret over that. For Mikey and Sydney and for everyone. The legacy. It's his, you know, it's not my place to decide like how he, right? And so that was disgusting, you know, that was yucky. And what can I say? I'm not going to kill myself. I'm not going to do that. I can't justify that in my mind. I can't, right? Because I didn't let a rich, manipulative man cast a spell over my mind. And so this is, right, like this is where we're really kind of like in our growing pains now, aren't we? Hollywood, show business, you know? That magic, right, it's not the way to treat people. This is my point, you know? And I have no grace, you know, I'm just like him. Right? But in the opposite direction, you know, this is what the women all saw. That I have like clear boundaries and say, like, oh, this is what I'll talk to you about, and I'll say it right now. But if you want to come in here, right? Of course. This is so intimately connected to, you know, the things in my psyche that I despise. Because, right, Quentin's interested in psychological mind games, right? And I am cool, you know, like I get it. I should have been cooler. Like I know that. I do know that. You know, Mikey, Sydney, right? I want them to be happy. I want them to have safe experiences on their film sets they work out. You know, of course, it's basic human decency, you know. But I can keep writing, right? Like, no, there's nothing different in my life, right? All I've ever done is be genuine. And I was a coward the only moment that it mattered, You know, like that's like, I've told him that 100 times, you know, and this is why I sacrificed everything. Because I wanted to show him that I respected it, and I see now that, of course, there's no, right? Like, he could have been gracious in defeat and said, I'll always resent you forever. Right? This woman wants to be with you. I can't stop her. Right? And that we could have, like, had some sort of amicability, like, through that. But for him to be so deceptive and so completely wicked in contriving in this way to keep us all separate, like in this, right? All because, right? And so this is my point. This is why I was like crying a minute ago, because now I've turned everyone into me, where they all are burdened with this great, right? Right? And so it's sitting on them really heavy now. I know that, right? They brought me in to make them feel good, and now it's cost them everything, and they've never felt worse than they do now, right? And they are teetering on the edge of suicidal depression, right? Quentin, right? He has to, right? I don't want to yell. I don't want to get like fiery and passionate, you know, but like, right? He just has to relax. That's all. That's it. You know? I need disclosure. I need, right? My magic to be above board. It's my fault. It's not your fault. Right? But you haven't designed these creatures to exist in the way that you're compelling them to live like, right? That this is, maybe this is something that you're like okay with. And obviously I'm okay with it because this is how I always live. Right? But if, right? If the people around you are all miserable to such an attenuated degree that they're all prepared to leave everything behind, then does that not say more about like how you treat them than like how I treated Tribeca? Isn't that, right? Doesn't that kind of like turn Tribeca like on its head, if only superficially? You know, fundamentally it is my fault, right? But you know, like, do you manipulate them in a similar way all the time? Do you exact deep sexual sadistic torture upon their psyche because you cannot biologically conceive, right? That's, right? That these are deep psychological scars that I couldn't see superficially as a clairvoyant, right? On top of, right, that I need, right? You understand what I'm saying right now, right? That, right, that they don't have to live like that you don't have to live like that, right? I don't, you know, it doesn't matter. I'm living the same way. Right? I'm living this, like I'm doing the same thing. What is it? Oh, I have like a snot cloud, like in my mind, like from these people. Right? I'll meditate on all of them killing themselves all the time, and I'll be fine. You know, like in that way. Right? Because I don't have any secrets in the world, right? That's the point, right? That you're all, right? That while I've turned you all into me, right? You've turned all of them into you, right? Where they are now, they're saddled with this great burden, this great psychic burden that you expect them to hold as a malignancy of thought inside of them forever, right? By preventing them from picking up the pieces of their psyche, by compelling them to remain, right, separated from me. Like, yes, like that's like what I'm saying, you know, it says it's about psychiatry, it's not about love, you know, like it's like we have to reduce this scientifically, you know, like we're all, you know, at the very least, like Daniela, like yes, her too, you know, like it's all four of them. But Mikey and Sydney, right, that you have created, right, that the cage that you wanted to put me in for Tribeca, you've put me in their minds. That's the point, right, that now I occupy the most potent real estate in their soul and always will forever. Right? And so this is right, this was your design. It wasn't my design. Right? Which is to say, right, it was Mikey's design to be vulnerable with me. Right? It was Sydney's design to be vulnerable with me and say, right, maybe we think Quentin's kind of a loser, but can you like be hot and like make it fun for us? You know, like that's real magic, because not everyone likes you that you work with. You don't control everyone's mind that you work with. Right? Sometimes it's good to have sandpaper, to have friction, right? This is what they always saw. That because you can't tame me as a psychic, right? That's why they can rest with me as psychic witches. Like, that's like the point. And I'm only seeing that now. Right? So now, right, my point being, how do they justify the film now? Right? Like, what, like, in what way do they genuinely justify the film? Because they got money, because, right? Because you gave them that experience on that set? Is that the argument? Because, like, I know that experience was miserable, that you kept them, right, for 4 or 5 days, tied up and raped them violently, constantly, that entire time, right, that you said awful things to them, subjected their sensory input to the most disgusting pressures, both psychic as well as physical, to exact sadistic control over them, right, to remind them if and when they ever hold me, right, that it's through you and your psychic torture over us all that we found each other. And so that's, right, like, that's the deepest, most disgusting level of sadism that I could possibly fathom, right? And so since there's no other reason to explain why you have exacted such a campaign upon me, right, I find it prudent to discuss this with the industry, like, in a real white magic, like, serious, like, clinical, psychiatric sort of way, right? That's like, that he really did. He stepped into the realm of true criminality, right? When he wrote the script the way that he did, right? Wrote the scenes to where the actresses get tied up and fucked in bondage, right? And then willingly refused to cast the only man that they want to do the scenes with because he cannot control me as a psychic. I contend that that's not, like, actually a legal reason to not cast me, given how the film is written, right? That in that scenario, right, I argue legally that the studio, the producers, everyone, they are in fact obligated, right, to allow these women to choose who to do those scenes with them, because it involves a high latent risk of forcible penetration. That's the point. And so since, like, these women are vulnerable and are exposing themselves in, like, a real physical, sexual sort of way, that I think that their intellectual, right, instincts actually do supersede everyone else's, especially the writer who has such perversions in his mind, right? That's the real point, right? That the actors, right, the performers in these movies, right, that we do as union, card holders, as people who work on union jobs, right, they need to know intrinsically on the deepest parts of their psychological foundation that they're always safe from abuse, right? That they're always safe from instances of being out of control and being forced into doing scenes that they don't want to do. And that's exactly what's occurred with these women, right? That's exactly what's occurred with Daniela Pick and her marriage, right? That he has used his intention, right? He's used his psychic occultism, right, to manipulate and destroy these women's minds and turn them into submissive slaves, right? And so, right, now that when he denied me, right, because he can't control me as a psychic, he declared to the industry, right, and the industry all pat him on the back and say, yeah, good for you, buddy, right, that this is about me controlling everything. I don't care who accidentally fucks them on my set. If I can't control him as a psychic, they don't get to fucking play at bondage with any of the bitches in my movie, right? Because the women don't matter. They're satanic vessels of psychic evil. I arrange them, I bind them, I let my buddy fuck them. Brian's not my buddy. He didn't let me control his mind. Therefore, they get raped and have no say in it. That's the point, right? So is that, like, are we all still kind of, like, wrestling with why that's completely disgusting and why he could and would, in fact, exact such deep sadistic torture upon their psyches that they would legally sign anything to mitigate him from torturing them outright, and would tell everyone on the surface that everything is fine, because they're so perpetually terrorized that Quentin is going to exact the last scene that's in my novel upon them. That's the point, right? And so it keeps them submissive, right? It keeps them, like, enslaved to this, right, psychic burden, right? That now they're all living like me. We're all living like Quentin, right? That they have this, like, really complicated relationship in their heart and mind with this man that's on the other side of the country, but they can't go see him because Quentin Tarantino possesses their minds in such a sadistic, evil way that they're afraid to even call him and let him know that they're safe. So, something to consider.